DrZero Show right now connects to UK, David Burden. Hello, David. How are you?
Fine, thanks very much. Yep.
Thank you very much for joining. I know you from my master thesis times when and the time that you were doing 3D version of LAX. You're using already available open data sources to visualize Los Angeles airport in 3D environment. So isn't it? It'll around
Yeah.
2008,
It wasn't so much. Yeah, it wasn't so much. It was the airport. It was actually the data of the air traffic around it.
Yes.
So the same sort of information as you currently get on flight radar, but showing that in 3 dimensions.
Yes. So you work with 3D worlds, immersive worlds. Can you please tell us why it is becoming a hype right now? People start to talk more about it. Why should we care about immersive worlds?
I think there's a number of things that are driving it. Obviously, pre-COVID, there was a lot of interest in how you could use these spaces for doing things like training, particularly where you've got training that could be costly or it's difficult to set up, or a student can't get access to it 24/7. So if you think about construction, you think about healthcare, you think about laboratory work, all of those require equipment to train. Whereas actually, if you can do it all virtually, it means you can do that training anytime, any place, anywhere. So we're already seeing a drive towards that. But then obviously over the last year or so with COVID, with people being forced to be at home for long periods of time, then actually that ability to shove a VR headset on and suddenly be somewhere completely different is quite attractive to people.
Yes. Can you tell us in which industry do you use immersive technologies?
So for us, it's primarily within healthcare, so working within higher education, for training nurses, training social workers, so into social care. We've also worked in the heritage sector, so looking at recreating historic sites. We've also done work within disaster management, so those sorts of sectors.
But I can already read all these things from a 2D website. Why should I use immersive worlds?
But because it places you in that space, and there's a lot of evidence that shows that there's something called encoding specificity, which says that if you learn things in the place that you're going to actually use those skills, then there's a lot more cues there to help recall that information. So if you learn, how to work with a patient, how to conduct a particular test by doing it in a simulation, then actually that embeds it far better in the brain than actually just sort of doing it in a classroom type environment, or certainly than reading it off a 2D screen. And also it's the ability to create it so there's very few prompts. Real life doesn't have lots of prompts saying here's six things, which of these 6 things do you want to do? Whereas in a virtual environment, we can create that environment. We did an exercise many years ago for doing a paramedic trainer, where you're a paramedic, you arrive at the scene of an accident, there's a motorcycle and a motorcyclist on the floor, and that's it. The simulation doesn't prompt you. It just says, there's the situation, get on with it. And you should know from your training what you should do. You've got your ambulance that's got all the drugs, all the kit in it, and it's up to you to then actually sequence it correctly.
So of course, if I want to experience this type of stuff, there should be an accident in real life, but you can recreate it in the simulation. So I'm gaining experience inside the simulation. So does it make me much more ready to real life situation?
Very much so. And that's the feedback we've had from students is they can practice things which in the physical world, they might just get to practice once or twice because that's all that's been timetabled for them. Or it's things that they can't even practice. So a couple of the exercises we've done recently are for social workers are doing home visits for child protection. Mm-hmm. And obviously you can't practice going into somebody's house and asking them about their child. The first time you do it for real. Whereas in a simulation, you can actually go through the process and think about what you need to be looking at, think about how you're going to speak to the mother, speak to the family, speak to the children. So you get the chance to rehearse that lots of times and in different scenarios before you have to do it for real.
So let's say, hypothetically, I could rehearse this via voice, let's say voice call. How it is different when I do with my avatars?
With avatars, it's about the awareness of the environment. So particularly, what you're doing there is when you're talking to the person, is you're picking up on a lot of the cues in the room about things you need to be aware of, things that might actually trigger parts of the conversation. So in one of the simulations we've got, there's things like there's a broken iPad and there's a doll with an arm torn off. And those should be cues to you to things that you're going to actually bring into the conversation.
Okay. Like, does it also, because when I was exploring, I noticed that it has a very nice social factor that I cannot experience in other platforms. Let's say at Facebook or at Zoom, okay, I talk face to face, but I don't feel that I am in somewhere with them. But when I am somewhere with my avatar, I feel that I am there with somebody else. Is it
Yeah,
the case?
where we particularly notice that is in doing things like virtual conferences and virtual workshops, where we've all spent the last year going to Zoom conferences.
Yes.
And every Zoom conference I do, I'm sat in this chair, I'm looking at that screen, I've got a whole tile of little faces, and every single conference is the same. Whereas when we do a virtual conference, I go as an avatar into a 3D space. Each time I go, it's usually a different sort of 3D space. I can walk around that space just as I could do a real conference room, and I can actually go up to people and go up to their avatars, and we can actually have a one-to-one conversation, which is quite unique within that environment. And I remember, even as I speak now, I'm thinking back to some of those conferences I've been to over the last year, which are like that. And I can remember them because of the places the virtual places that I was there, and the virtual avatars I was talking to.
Yes, you can even exchange files, slides from avatar to avatar. You also reminded me my time when I was exploring. Also, so it is like I can visit from rooms, I can visit the posters. Yes, it is much closer to reality than sitting in front of 2D. And what was amazing that people are able to dance, for example, like I can dance, and
yeah, you can.
Please.
Yeah, and then I think you can have those social events, so it doesn't all have to be post-based conferencing, and you can actually have the after event party and things like that. So you can do events which are purely for socializing. So I went with Immersive UK. We went to visit Burning Man on Mozilla Hubs, and it was just there as a social. It was just there as a social event. So yes, you've got that ability to do all those things that you do in the physical world, but to still do them in the virtual world.
Yes. What was fascinating was like when I was flying with my avatar, I felt excited, even though in reality I am just sitting, because my avatar flies. So was it the case that people feel like it is like immersive? It is like extension of my identity is there, but actually sort of I feel that I am there because my avatar flies. Even though I sit, I feel excited. Why should I feel excited? I'm just sitting.
Yeah, and there's a weird there is that weird crossover that it is a very visceral experience. So it feels like it's you that's having the experience, but at the same time, you feel you've got the protection of that avatar, and so it's the avatar that from a sort of social embarrassment point of view, if you like, you don't feel the same levels of social embarrassment, because you do have the artifice of the avatar between yourself and the outside world, which again you don't have when you do a Zoom call. It's me you're looking at. It's not your avatar. But one of the things I think is particularly interesting is as you're saying, you're describing those sorts of Second Life style situations where you're moving an avatar around and you're doing things and you're feeling immersed. You don't have to, shove your headset on to feel that level of immersion. You can get a lot of that immersion just from driving your avatar around those sorts of experiences. So it's one of the things we're very keen to do is to make sure you've always got that choice about do I put a headset on or don't I put a headset on? And unfortunately, a lot of the hype has been about you've got to put a headset on. But I think the reality is a long way from that.
Is it? Yes. When we were talking years back, we didn't have these eyeglasses or this type of goggles or headphones, but still it felt real. Just there were some problems with some software, but actually it was working very well, because I think it increases the level of barrier to use it. I mean, too much expensive, and like why we prefer Zoom over Skype, because Zoom was able to manage to connect us instantly. Like entry level was easy. I don't need to spend so much time to find how I can share the screen, because technology is the same, but at Skype they were not that user friendly, and then I could use it directly. So the same thing here. If they say, okay, I need to have a headphone, like eyeglasses, where is it? I need to purchase, I need to put on. But if I could directly, this is my experience. Like maybe somebody else would say something else, but maybe there should be some different level of immersiveness that I am okay to connect via my headphone without eyeglasses. So
yeah,
what do you provide? Because I know you have done lots of great things in different domains, but what do you provide for education? Let's say I represent a company or I represent a university and I want to get services from you. Do you have ready solutions that we can do it, or do we need to start everything from scratch?
I mean, what we focus on is creating an authoring tool. So what we, our view has always been that this stuff isn't going to really take off until it's almost as easy as creating PowerPoint, or at least something like an Articulate e-learning lesson.
Yes.
So that's our focus. So what we build in Trainingscapes is an authoring tool for doing immersive 3D and VR training, which is a drag and drop. What you see is what you get environment. There's no code, so it's a code-free environment that you can create all the interactivities that you want in there. So the idea is that actually we can work with a client and we can maybe help them with their first sort of couple of projects. But gradually, the idea is that the client, particularly their e-learning team, and even their tutors, and even in some cases their students, become proficient at actually using the authoring tool, so that then the system just moves and moves and moves as they think, oh, let's use it in this area, let's use it in that area. They don't have to come back to us every time. They just use the authoring tool to create more and more different exercises. And for us, that's what it's got to be to let it happen. And the system will generate the codes, will run either on a headset or on a PC, a Mac. We also can put it onto iPads, iPhones, because a lot of students have got mobile devices. So it's important that they can access it through mobile devices as well.
Thank you very much for joining from UK. I appreciate your time and I wish you great success for your other projects.
It's been great to talk to you. Thank you.